The fluorescent lights of Fort Bragg's 82nd Airborne Headquarters buzzed like angry hornets over the polished linoleum, and every boot that scraped across it sounded like a judge's gavel. In the middle of the chaos stood Harlan, Hank Whitaker, pushing a mop in slow, deliberate circles. His janitor's jumpsuit hung loose on his 6'3" frame, the name tag crooked, the fabric faded from too many washes. A private first class with a fresh haircut and a mouth full of bravado elbowed his buddy. "Yo, check Grandpa Moses over there. Bet he can't even spell airborne." Laughter ricocheted off the walls, sharp as shrapnel. Hank never looked up. He just kept mopping, the way a man keeps breathing when the world's on fire. What if the quiet janitor everyone mocks is the only reason the base isn't a smoking crater right now? Smash that like button if you've ever been counted out, and if you love your mom and dad, hit subscribe and show some love. Let's get this story to every corner of the USA. The mockery had been going on for months. Ever since Hank transferred in from parts unknown, the troops treated him like furniture. The sergeants ignored him, the lieutenants stepped over his bucket, and the privates turned him into a running joke. "Hey, Custodian Hank, you missed the war. Or did the war miss you?" They'd slap the back of his head with rolled-up copies of Stars and Stripes, leave half-eaten Maries in the urinals just to watch him fish them out. Hank took it all with the same flat expression, the same steady push of the mop. Only the night shift security cameras caught the way his jaw flexed when the laughter got too loud. Captain Marcus Delgado ran the S3 shop like a Wall Street trading floor, phones slamming, printers screaming, maps bleeding red ink. He was Harvard ROTC, fast-tracked for major, and he despised inefficiency. One Tuesday he stormed out of the briefing room, tie askew, and nearly slipped in a puddle Hank had just mopped. "Jesus, Whitaker. You trying to kill me?" Delgado's voice cracked like a whip. The ops bay went silent. Hank straightened, mop handle vertical like a rifle at port arms. "Negative, sir. Wet floor signs right there." Delgado's face purpled. "You don't talk back to me, civilian. You're a contractor, not a soldier." Hank's eyes, storm cloud gray, met the captain's for the first time. "Understood, sir." Delgado kicked the yellow sign across the hall and kept walking. The troops howled. That night the base PA crackled with an alert, live fire exercise at 0400, full battalion, no excuses. Hank clocked out at 2200, signed the log with a fountain pen nobody else used, and disappeared into the Carolina dark. At 0345 the next morning, a Black Hawk touched down on the pad behind the motor pool. Out stepped a three-man advance team in crisp multicam, faces blackened, rifles slung low. They moved like ghosts toward the armory. The duty guard, Private Alvarez, was half asleep, scrolling TikTok. One of the intruders raised a suppressed pistol. Alvarez never saw the muzzle flash. Inside the ops bay, Hank was waxing the floor under the humming lights when the first explosion rocked the building. Glass shattered. Alarms shrieked. Troops spilled from the barracks in boxers and boots, weapons clattering. Another blast, this one closer, sent ceiling tiles raining like confetti. Captain Delgado burst through the double doors, pistol in hand, screaming for a head count. "Intruders. Armories compromised. We've got," his words died. Hank was no longer holding a mop. He was holding an M4 carbine that had definitely not been there 5 seconds ago, magazine seated, chamber indicator glowing green. The janitor's jumpsuit was half unzipped, revealing a faded tan t-shirt with a screaming eagle and the words, "Night Stalkers Don't Quit." Delgado's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Whitaker." Hank's voice cut through the chaos like a bayonet. "Captain, get your people to the rally point Bravo. Lock down the SCAF. Move." Delgado hesitated half a heartbeat, then obeyed, because every instinct in his body suddenly recognized the voice of command. Soldiers who'd mocked Hank for months now followed him without question as he flowed down the hallway, boots silent, rifle up. He paused at the corner, pieing the angle like he'd done it in 100 kill houses. Two intruders rounded the bend, raising AKs. Hank double-tapped center mass, 2 rounds each, textbook Mozambique. The bodies dropped before the echoes faded. Sergeant First Class Ramirez, the biggest trash talker in the battalion, skidded up beside him, eyes wide. "Where the hell did you?" Hank shoved a spare mag into Ramirez's chest. "Less talk, more shoot." Flank left, suppressed the loading dock. Ramirez, who outweighed Hank by 50 pounds, nodded like a private and moved. The fight spilled across the compound. Hank directed fire teams with hand signals sharper than any PowerPoint slide Delgado had ever briefed. He dragged a wounded specialist out of the kill zone, applied a tourniquet one-handed, and kept shooting. When the armory's ammo cache cooked off in a secondary explosion, Hank was already herding the last of the noncombatants into the hardened bunker. The sky turned orange. Sirens wailed from neighboring posts. And then, silence, broken only by the crackle of burning timber and the whimpers of the injured. At 0512, a convoy of up-armored Suburbans screamed through the gate, light strobing red and blue. Out stepped Brigadier General Joseph "Iron Joe" Callahan, commander of the 18 Airborne Corps, silver hair plastered with sweat, stars gleaming on his collar. The general strode straight through the smoke toward the ops bay, aides scrambling to keep up. Captain Delgado snapped to attention, uniform soot-streaked, and began a frantic salute. "Sir, we," Callahan's eyes locked on Hank, who was reloading behind an overturned Humvee, jumpsuit now shredded, blood, someone else's, painted across his chest. The general's face went through a transformation no one in the 82nd had ever seen, recognition, then awe, then something close to fear. Callahan came to rigid attention, heels clicking, right hand snapping up in the sharpest salute of his 30-year career. "Colonel Whitaker, sir." The entire courtyard froze. Delgado's salute faltered midair. Ramirez dropped the magazine he was loading. Hank returned the salute with parade ground precision, then let his hand fall. "At ease, Joe. Situations contained. 6 tangos Kia, 1 in custody, no friendly fatalities." Callahan's voice cracked. "Sir, how did," Hank cut him off with a look that could freeze gasoline. "Later. Secure the prisoner. I want names." The twists kept coming. The captured intruder, zip-tied and hooded, turned out to be ex-Spetsnaz, hired by a defense contractor furious over a cancelled contract. The target hadn't been the armory, it had been the SCIF, where next-gen drone specs were stored. Hank had known for weeks. The janitor job was cover, he was Black Ops, recalled from retirement after a career so classified his own daughter thought he'd been a plumber. The mop. A prop. The fountain pen. A garrote wire. The wet floor signs. RFID beacons that had tracked the intruders the moment they breached the wire. By dawn, JSOC choppers thundered overhead. Hank, Colonel Harlan Whitaker, Congressional Medal of Honor, 3 Bronze Stars with V, more classified decorations than most generals had ribbons, stood on the steps of the headquarters building in a borrowed set of ACUs, talking quietly into a satellite phone. General Callahan hovered nearby like a nervous ensign. When Hank hung up, he turned to the assembled troops, hundreds now, every mocking face from the past 6 months pale with shame. Delgado stepped forward, voice trembling. "Sir. Colonel, we didn't know." Hank's gaze swept the crowd. "You weren't supposed to. That was the point." He let the silence stretch until it hurt. "But you learn fast under fire. Good work tonight." Ramirez found his voice. "Sir, why'd you let us treat you like?" Hank's smile was thin, tired. "Because the enemy was watching. And because sometimes the best camouflage is being invisible." He clapped Ramirez on the shoulder, hard enough to stagger the bigger man. "Besides, Sergeant, your jokes were terrible. Work on your material. The final twist came at the promotion ceremony 3 days later. The base theater was packed, cameras rolling for the embed from CNN. General Callahan read the citation, for extraordinary heroism above and beyond. When he pinned the silver eagle of a full colonel on Hank's chest, the applause shook the rafters. Then Hank took the podium. "This isn't about me," he said, voice carrying to the cheap seats. "It's about every soldier who thinks the mission's too big, the odds too long, the uniform too heavy. You don't need stars on your collar to lead. You need guts in your gut." He looked straight at Delgado. "And sometimes you need to shut up and mop the floor." The troops roared. Delgado's eyes glistened. Ramirez led a chant that started small and swelled until the walls vibrated. "Hank. Hank. Hank." Epilogue: 6 months later, a new janitor pushed a mop down the same hallway. Young kid, nervous, name tag crooked. A private smirked and whispered, "Wonder if he's secretly a ninja." The kid looked up, met the private's eyes, and smiled, small, knowing. The private swallowed hard and found somewhere else to be. "Drop a comment and tell me, what part of the country are you watching from? East Coast, West Coast, Heartland, or down south? Let's put this story on the map."